how does it happen? How do you think does it happen to say, okay, Israel has to create its own state fresh off of, escaping out of this oppression and the Holocaust and all these things. I'm wondering where the impetus, where the sort of impulse comes from I guess you don't see it as becoming the oppressor. I guess they don't see it in the moment as becoming the oppressor.
Yeah, and that's what's so tragic about this is that again, and again, Israel is a settler colony, like it is a colonial state. The difference is that and what makes it so tragic is that they were also refugees, right? They were both colonists and
Correct.
refugees, and you can be both. You can be both. And again, oppressed people can become oppressors pretty quickly. We're not the only people who that's happened to. But I think, some of, and again, there were some Zionists and there were some people who wanted to live in that land and coexist with the Palestinian people. And again, I have no issue with Jewish people living in that land with coexisting. The issue is that many people wanted to create essentially a Jewish only state or a state that privileged the rights of Jews over everybody else. That's obviously problematic in general, but also because we weren't living there, right? And
Right.
again, it's not our
Correct.
fault, but we weren't
Well,
living
I
there.
mean, and you talk about that, because again, one thing that is extremely hard for me, and when I was watching the film, uh, I had so many aha moments. There was an aha moment that I had when there was a clip that you show of both Barack Obama and Joe Biden talking about the United States relationship to Israel and how it forever will be like this. I have learned a lot, and I have learned a lot that I didn't know that our history classes, things like that, did not tell us. It is very hard for me to believe that Barack Obama, that Biden, that Kamala Harris, that a lot of these folks are not aware of the events that took place before October 7th. But they all keep going back to October 7th. The fact that I'm just learning about things like the Nakba in 1948 and, the first sort of genocide and pushing of Palestine people out of their homes and like hearing actual stories from Palestine families who are not that far removed because it ain't that long ago for some of them who were talking about how they thought maybe they might have would have had an opportunity to return to their homes. And so when you look at the history of all of this, you see that this was never about Hamas. This was never about October 7th. This was like a continual plan. And I feel like Netanyahu has continued to reveal that this was always the plan and not even being concerned for the safety of the hostages as they employ their sort of military strategy that how could you possibly be concerned about hostages? Not only that, but a lot of news story and information comes up that a lot of the casualties to some of the hostages and Israeli folks have come from Israeli soldiers. When I looked at this and I thought to myself, well, how does something like this happen? And just heard yourself talk about sort of your upbringing and seeing Israel as a sort of solution to safety and to having a safe space. And I this kind of term of summer camp kind of came up, Um, and as I looked at these summer camps, I kind of almost looked at this is not and very much not an isolated situation where look at like evangelical churches
Very similar. Very
and
similar.
how they
Very similar.
indoctrinate folks
Yep.
into believing the narrative that they have created about things. But then to see in these summer camps, the kids don military uniforms and sort of be conditioned from a very young age to see things in a sort of way and to also glamorize. Like I want to say when I first was seeing sort of videos on TikTok and different things of Israeli soldiers, because I don't know what to believe half the time when you see videos on the internet if something's like a deep fake, if it's AI, whatever. But I just kept seeing really attractive looking Israeli soldiers creating content and then when I saw your film, I saw that it was kind of a part of the process of being like a rock star, like a
Yeah.
almost a celebrity if you're in the Israeli military.
Yeah, a lot of young, a lot of American Jews, we really glamorize the Israeli military. We really, look up to the Israeli military. And I think part of that is that, we Jewish people, were oppressed for so long, and we were victimized for so long. And there's, there's a lot of guilt about that. We should have fought back, or we should have defended ourselves. We couldn't have. There's nothing we could have done about the Holocaust. But I think
Plus, like that,
one
like there weren't moments when there was a resistance. It's just like with
definitely there were
slavery, and
many moments. There was many
people tried
moments.
to say that we didn't have. There were so many times when we tried to fight
Exactly.
back, but it was
Exactly.
what it was, and we were oppressed for a very long time, and we were, and
Exactly.
we have a lot of feelings that we're still healing from around that.
Exactly. No, and I think we face such just unspeakable oppression that there's this impetus, this feeling that we need to be strong. We need to be strong. We need to have power, and we need to become the own writers of our destiny to a certain extent. And how that's played, and again, that's understandable. Like I understand where a lot of that comes
Very,
from,
yes.
totally. But tragically, the Palestinians are not responsible for our oppression. The Palestinians did not oppress us. It was Europeans that oppressed us. But we ended up essentially, the people who ended up having to deal with our trauma